Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, it is laying out exactly as we thought. This is my colleagues across the aisle. When we had questions about the FBI's operation and investigations, it was, oh, stay away. We don't want to get close to Mueller. In fact, the chairman even said, you know, is it no longer okay to wait for Robert Mueller? Well, it's no longer right. They got you in front of them right now, so get ready. This is all this is going to be, DOJ oversight. And it is. I'm just going to say for a second, there is some things interesting here that you did point out in your opening statement that do need addressing. I think there's a lot of things, whether it be voting rights issues, whether it be civil rights issues and other things, and I get that. But I'm also going to deal with something that is directly under your oversight provision, Mr. Acting Attorney General, and we're going to talk about but something I've written a letter about. And I believe that lying before this body or anybody is wrong, especially under oath, and that's not the issue, but the issue is tactics. And my question is, were you aware of Roger Stone's indictment before it became public?
Congressman, that's as you know, an important question. It is also, Mr. Stone is part of an ongoing investigation, but I have, again, been briefed on the special counsel's investigation. That would have been that would have been considered a development that I would have been briefed on, and I was briefed on that.
Are you familiar from public reports or otherwise that a CNN reporter was camped out outside of Stone's house when the FBI arrested him? This wouldn't be part of the investigation.
I am aware of that, and it was deeply concerning to me as to how CNN found out about that.
Well, that is I'm glad we're going down that road, Mr. Attorney General. This is did somebody at the Department of Justice seemingly share a draft indictment with CNN prior to Stone's arrest, prior to a grand jury's finding of a true bill?
Ranking Member Collins, the court had a sealed indictment that after Mr. Stone's arrest was unsealed. Consistent with all its prior indictments, the DOJ's basic policy for transparency in criminal cases is that the indictment is posted on the DOJ webpage promptly after it's unsealed, and then media outlets were notified. We do not know of any, and I do not know of any other special counsel's office notice or DOJ notice to media outlets regarding Mr. Stone's indictment or his arrest. And otherwise, you know, I really, as I sit here today, don't have any other information that I can talk about regarding Mr. Stone.
Well, given your answer even just then, it does seem concerning given the timing of this reporter's knowledge and other things that there seems to have been a gap in that discovery. And just another question is if anybody would outside this, would you view this as a problem? Do you, because this looks like this is something, I'm just asking, as you in your final days here, would this be a problem with DOJ if we're looking at the timing doesn't match up, that somebody was, it seems to appear that this was given pre or prior knowledge, not going through the normal channels. Because if it was given through normal channels, every media outlet would have been there.
Yep.
But only one was.
Yep.
Mr. Collins, I share your concern with the possibility that a media outlet was tipped off to Mr. Stone's either indictment or arrest before it was made, that information was available to the public.
One of the other issues, and this is, you know, since we're going to go down this, the chairman wanted to have this, this is a question that's not unfamiliar, and it should be, is Bruce Orr still employed with the Department of Justice?
To answer your question directly, Mr. Collins, Bruce Orr is currently employed with the Department of Justice. Okay.
Is there any process at this point, or that you could comment? I understand personnel issues, but are you aware of the discussions and also the implication investigations from Congress and from others surrounding Bruce Orr's involvement in many of the investigation problems that we have seen over the past few years at DOJ?
Mr. Collins, I am generally aware of Mr. Orr being questions being raised about his behavior at the Department of Justice.
Let me tell you it a different way. Knowing what you know and seeing what you have seen and using your past experience and prior knowledge, do you believe that Mr. Orr was operating outside normal channels and appropriate channels in which he was operating under, which has been publicly reported?
Mr. Collins, this is a very important question for many people, both in this body and in the general public. The Office of Inspector General is currently looking at the Carter Page FISA application,
which is very much of a concern,
and it is also being reviewed at the same time simultaneously by the Mr. John Huber, who's the U.S. Attorney from Utah, who was asked by Attorney General Sessions to conduct a review of certain matters at the Department of Justice. And so, together with the fact that any situation regarding Mr. Orr's employment would be part of a confidential human resources process, I just am unable to talk any more about Mr. Orr, his involvement in any matters that could be subject to either an Inspector General's investigation or a human resource matter.
Well, Attorney General Whitaker, barring the, now again, as we had another part to our play this morning, we are now finding out that you may be subpoenaed to come back and do a deposition, which again, as we continue down this line, is any way around this to continue to attack it at the investigation of the president. This is again, is just an amazing. I just want to say, one, in your last few days, you know, do your best, do your job, and continue to do that part. But also at a certain point in time, there's many on this committee, many on our side of the aisle, as well as the other side of the aisle, that have been very concerned with what we have seen at the Department of Justice, especially in the FBI, and especially over the last few years, that should turn every citizen, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, could care less about politics. When there's ever a perception, and I've shared this with others that have came before you to testify, whenever there is a perception that there is not an equal treatment on either side, that is a problem. It needs to be addressed. I'm hoping that when Bill Barr comes in, this will be one of his first steps that we can continue with. I know you've attempted to do that, but this is going to be a long day, and it's going to be a day in which we chase a lot of rabbits. Unfortunately, when we get to the end of the day, the good men and women that oversight of the Department of Justice, which is what you were pitched with back before the chairman was the chairman, this is not going to be an oversight hearing. It's going to be more of a rabbit chase down a lot of holes. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Collins, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, may I answer his?
You may.
Yeah. I think it's important as we sit here today that we understand that this is not a confirmation hearing, that I am probably going to be replaced by Bill Barr in the next week. This is an oversight hearing for the Department of Justice. And I'm surprised, as we've both had the chairman and the ranking member talk about what they want to talk about, that we haven't talked anything about the work regarding violent crime. We haven't talked about the opioid crisis. We haven't talked about religious liberty. We haven't talked about free
That's
speech.
because this is a fucking dog and pony show. They're trying to get you to say something that they can fucking screw the president with. That's the whole intent.
On our college campuses and a whole host of other issues that I know are very important to you. And I look forward to talking about the substance of the work at the Department of Justice. But if this, I mean, it is your 5 minutes, and you can ask the questions that are of most interest to you. But as I sit here today, I would like to talk about the incredible work that we've been doing at the Department of Justice since I was Chief of Staff and now Acting Attorney General.
I appreciate that.